because of the thing. I don't know where it picks up. So I like to, it's sort of like in a few minutes, I like to start like, we're in the middle of something. And then you're all like, wait, what did I miss? You didn't miss anything, I don't think. Hi, everybody. How's it going? There's John. There's Donna. There are my glasses. There's Frank. There's Brian. There's Eugene. There's Not Trouble. With a name like that, you could be trouble. I'm not saying, I'm just saying. Chuck Joyner's here. Rick is here. Hey, Rick. How's it going? Oh, it's no trouble, not trouble. Yeah, still, you could be trouble. I'm keeping my eye. After the show, I'm keeping my eye. I'm going to keep both my eyes, actually. I've decided. Thought about a pirate thing? Yeah. No trouble. Is that, wait a minute, is that Nate? Nate's not no trouble, is he? That might be Nate. Or it might be somebody else. Rob's here. Hello, Rob. Right. Okay. Why don't we do a thing? Webb Bixby's here, so now we can do a thing. How's my light? Because I've become that kind of person now. I worry about my lighting. Because I do video. Should have seen me when I was just doing audio. I might not even wear a shirt. Okay. Are you ready? Lord. What tomorrow may bring, and whose stuff is it anyway? It is Monday, the 7th of December, 2020, and this is macOS Can Live. Live. Unless you're listening later, in which case it was macOS Can Live. I don't know. Got no idea what it is now. Hi, I'm Ken Ray. Thank you very much for joining me for another little afternoon. Is palaver the right word? Chinwag, we could say. Bit of a chat. Second half of the show, we're going to talk about hardware as a service because that has come roaring back as a topic just over the weekend, actually, thanks to our good friend Unky Gene. We'll talk more about that later. Also got a really interesting bit of feedback that kind of like, it went in one ear and out the other the first time. Well, one eye and out the other. Keeping them both, though, don't forget. It went in one eye and out the other initially, but I went back and reread it today, and I'm actually really fascinated by this idea. So Ken G, no relation, and probably not the musician, wrote to me with an interesting idea. We'll talk about that towards the end of the show. First part of the show, though, there's a crackle in the air. There's excitement. There may be absolutely no reason for it, but there is a chance, there is a possibility. One might even say there is a likelihood of something new coming from Apple tomorrow. You may remember this story earlier. Last week, late last week, mid last week, maybe. Somebody, I want to say it was Mac Rumors, might have been called to Mac, got hold of a memo from Apple to Apple authorized service providers saying, right, you need to know about some changes that are coming 5:30 a.m. on the West Coast on Tuesday, the 8th of December. These changes are going to affect Apple Care, and there's also going to be a new SKU, and I can't remember what SKU stands for, but basically a new product number, a new product spec that they'll have to worry about, that they'll have to know about, that they'll have to be aware is out there, and that they'll have to answer questions for or around. And that just set everybody, wondering what the heck's going to happen. This is not the feedback I was talking about earlier. Steve wrote to me and said, could Apple be releasing a line of fitness equipment to go with the launch of Fitness Plus, which still has not been released, and it is really late in 2020 now. They didn't buy Peloton yet, and they have fitness instructors for stationary bikes, treadmills, and rowing machines, but most of us do not have these devices at home. So why would I buy Fitness Plus to help me run around the block when I can get that from Nike or other sources for free? Have they set up a full stable of partnerships? Haven't heard a thing. Yet all of us are cooped up at home with COVID, and people are scalping gym equipment, weights, etc. Would make sense for a big player to jump into this market, which seems to be a wide open white space right now. So says Steve. Not tomorrow. I could be wrong about that. It's possible I could be wrong about that, but it feels like that would be a big enough thing that we would have had leaks and leaks and leaks. So I would be incredibly surprised if that happened tomorrow. What I was expecting for tomorrow, and here's the thing, there's no reason for any of us to suspect anything unless somebody comes out with a rumor that says, we've seen this part, we've seen this thing. Otherwise, it's all either stuff that we think, well, that would make sense, or just stuff that we want. I don't really care if there's a new Apple TV, but I think there's going to be a new Apple TV at some point that's going to be more dedicated to gaming and apps and things like that. To bring Apple Arcade more fully into the living room. I was talking to a friend of mine who's more of a gamer than I am, and she said that anybody's more of a gamer than I am. Let's be clear. I've still left that poor Marvel hero standing on the roof where I left her the day after Thanksgiving because I haven't had time to get back to my games or game. Or when I've had time, I've chosen instead to watch Mariah Carey's Magical Holiday Christmas Palooza thing or The West Wing. My friend was playing a sort of a puzzle game, but, not just a puzzle game like Upwards or anything like that. Not like that word laces thing that's really for kids. She was playing a game that involved some movement, but really it was a strategy game. It was a solving a puzzle game and then moving on. And for that, she said it was responsive enough. For things like racing games and something like maybe Oceanhorn 2, she doesn't feel like that's responsive enough. So maybe a more high-powered Apple TV would be great. A lot of people thought that is what we would be getting tomorrow, and now some of the people who originally indicated that's what we're getting are trying to wave everybody off and say, no, we're not getting that tomorrow. Okay, so then what are we getting? Nobody seems to have a clear idea. Personally, I still think Apple TV could be the thing, but people are waving us off that, so okay, not. Things that we've been expecting that haven't gotten yet are the AirPods Pro. Those are the fancy schmancy over-the-ear headphones that everybody thinks Apple is going to make. Personally, I don't understand why they would do that, but there's really no reason to not either. Initially, earlier this year, people said Apple's going to get into over-the-air headphones and they're going to kill the Beats brand. And I don't understand why they would kill the Beats brand, because Beats they just print money. They just print money. Somebody was telling me that after they heard that first rumor that Apple was going to kill the Beats brand, they were watching some NBA game, NBA playoff game. I can't remember which, can't remember when it happened this year, because everything happened in the last 3 weeks in 2020. But there was like Beats branding on the parquet in the arenas, I believe they said. And of course, every player was wearing Beats headphones, or everybody who was, in their warm-up or workout or whatever, were wearing Beats headphones. I can't see Apple killing that brand. That said, for audiophiles, Beats come with a stink. They were too bassy. They were kind of muddy. There are all kinds of reasons that an audiophile wouldn't necessarily want to get into a pair of Beats. Apple might be able to get those people who won't spend $350 on a pair of Beats headphones, may be more than happy to spend $450 on a pair of Apple headphones, because they're white and they're pretty and Apple knows quality and Beats doesn't, even though Apple bought Beats 5 years ago and have been improving the Beats experience all the way along. So the Apple over-the-ear headphones, that's a possibility. AirTags, people say, are a possibility. I personally don't think AirTags rate an event of their own, but I think AirTags need an event, not of their own. Kind of like HomePod Mini. We got HomePod Mini announced along with the M1 Max, right? It was the One More Thing. It was at the One More Thing event, excuse me. And I honestly can't remember because they all sort of blur together, but I believe that was with the One More Thing event. You could have put out the HomePod Mini as a press release, and I think people would have gotten it, but I think things like intercom and the other stuff that they talked about at that release were better served having a video and having a video that people were already paying attention to. I think AirTags is the same kind of thing. You can do that as a press release. You can go ahead and put it out there, and I think people will get the idea. I don't think they'll get the idea in the same way as if when somebody is standing there, introducing something, they can, have a family walking around, or they can show, oh, look, there's your MacBook driving away. You can see it because you have AirTags. AirTags are possible. My money wouldn't be on it, but, first of all, I'm not a betting man. And second, don't listen to me because I don't know. I'm surprised when the sun comes up half the time. That's not completely true. Here are things that we haven't heard that I think would be interesting. And they're probably not going to happen, but why not? I'll tell you anyway, because they're kind of fun ideas. When's the last time Apple updated the iPod Touch? It's a throwaway device for Apple at this point. Almost nobody buys them, but I think it's been at least a year. You could go ahead and update that a tiny bit for people who don't want to spend the money on an iPhone or want to get something for the kids or something like that. And it seems like a possibility, not a probability. What about a new Apple Pencil? I don't know what improvements they would make. I don't know what they would need to do there. Again, it's kind of a throwaway because what I'm trying to figure out is what's the new thing that Apple is going to introduce that would be not worthy of an event, not worthy of nothing that's going to shake the world, right? New Apple Plus seems like a possibility. It's a pencil, excuse me. New Apple Pencil seems like a possibility because, hey, here's this thing. Some of you will want it. It's available now, but it's not going to set the world on fire. The last thing, and I'm kind of disappointed because once I thought of this, I was like, oh, yeah, it's probably that. I'm not saying this is definitely it, but what about an Intel-based MacBook of some sort? Apple has said they're going to keep supporting the Intel-based Macs for at least a couple of years. I'm sorry, keep producing them for at least a couple of years. My assumption has been those were mostly going to be for businesses, not going to be for the individual consumer. Not that consumers won't be able to go out and buy them, but that's not who they're being geared towards. And so put it out as a press release. Sure, we got a new MacBook Pro with a faster thing or a flashier doodad or something that's really only going to be for business and not anybody else. And what's annoying is having thought of it, I think that's the most logical thing, that it's just going to be something that we don't care about. But, you can't complain, first of all, because Apple didn't even say they were coming out with something. This is just an internal memo thing. And the other reason you can't complain is new iPads, new Macs, new iPhones, the HomePod Mini. I'm forgetting something. Other new iPads. Oh, and the Apple Watch and the other Apple Watch. There's no shortage of new stuff from Apple. So if it ends up being something, if there is a collective tomorrow, those people need to go out back and think about what they're ing. There's the name of a show right there. Try spelling that. Coming soon to Wondery. Speaking of podcasts, I got a thing I want to ask you to do or tell you about, a show I want to tell you about, and then we'll get to the second part of today's show. I do a show every week, almost every week. I think I've taken a couple of weeks off, and I've taken a couple of days off in a couple of weeks, but you get the idea. There is a daily show that I do called In a Few Minutes. And what that show is I get together with a friend of mine in tech, although there are a couple of people that I want to talk to that I've never spoken to before. It's weird because the way that show is built, we know each other, me and the guest, and so we can kind of, riff and play the way we might if we were sitting in the press room at Macworld, or sitting at the Chieftain, or someplace that's not in San Francisco. Anyway, I get together with a friend of mine this week. I was very happy to have Chuck Joyner join me. He's a joiner from a long line of joiners. Actually, I don't know how far back the name goes. But anyway, we talked about a bunch of stuff: streaming video, hardware as a service, services as services. We talked about new stuff. Chuck spun the wheel of stuff. It all sounds like a word association game, but really, it's 5 shows a week. And it would be swell if you listen to one or all of them. You can actually listen on my YouTube page, youtube.com/KenRay, or you can download the podcast, which is fun, I think. Not downloading. We've been doing that for years. The podcast, I think, is fun. I hope you will or do as well. The show is called In a Few Minutes, and you can find it wherever you find podcasts. So one of the topics that Chuck and I talked about this week, and this might make things both repetitive and redundant. One of the things that Chuck and I talked about this week, I want to say, can't remember if it was Wednesday's show or Thursday's show coming up this week, is the idea of hardware as a service. Loop Ventures principal Gene Munster and David Stockman wrote a note. I don't know if it was Friday or over the weekend, but they wrote it probably over the weekend because it really hit on Monday in the Apple news sphere. And I don't think it's a thing that I'm going to do as a news story because right now it's just an idea. It's an interesting idea, but it's also an idea that we've talked about before. Here's what Gene Munster and David Stockman said. Similar to the iPhone upgrade program, we believe over time Apple's delightful hardware trade-in experience for Mac, iPad, and Watch will evolve into hardware subscription offerings for these devices. Eventually, we envision the company merging its services offerings alongside hardware subscriptions to create a 360-degree bundle. Think of this as paying a monthly fee to Apple for most of your tech needs. Mac Daily News actually picked up on something. This is something that Horace Didier, who you know, well, maybe you don't know. I have a tremendous respect for Horace Didier. I don't always agree with him, but I have tremendous respect for the way he thinks. And this is something that he's been thinking for the past couple of years, actually almost 3 years now. Mac Daily News pulled something that he wrote back in February of 2018. Horace wrote, contrary to popular belief, Apple isn't a hardware company, nor is it a software company. Apple is fundamentally an ecosystem company. The trouble is, as Apple increasingly emphasizes device prices over the volumes for revenue gains, it confronts a fundamental tension between charging people more for hardware and simultaneously more for services to access through it. The former puts profit margins ahead of prevalence, while the latter emphasizes maximizing the number of gadgets in its customers' hands. He goes on to say, imagine a service where you simply subscribe to a regularly updated iPhone, Apple Watch, AirPods, or some subset of these devices. Throw in health monitoring, an iCloud subscription, Apple Music, Apple's original programming, and more into a cable TV-like bundle or a la carte. And Apple could go from being a hit-driven company to one that throws off predictable, consistent, subscription-based revenue. Think of it as Apple Prime, he said. Well, he got the name wrong. It was Apple One. And they haven't done the hardware yet, but it's interesting because the more I read that, the more I see. It's funny because in 2018, he's right. Apple was charging a decent amount for services. The prices for services right now are not throwaway. You do have to think about it a bit. Although Apple Arcade, I think if you even play games casually, is a no-brainer because it's $5. If you like any of the television shows on Apple TV Plus, it's a no-brainer because it's $5. And now, I think we talked here last week, I'm paying $30 a month for Apple One Premium, and I'm still saving like $5 or $10 because I was so subscribed to so many of the things that they have. It's interesting. As a business, and I know I'm not much of a business, but as a business, I'm a huge fan of recurring revenue. Recurring revenue, there's a group, well, I can't talk about that. There's a group that I work with, used to work with, that deals in subscription services. And somebody at the table said, well, what if we just sold this as a package? And like the people in that group were like shook their heads. They're like, no, we're really more of a fan of the subscription model. And I was down at the other end of the table. I was like, I like recurring revenue. And they all laughed because, yeah, that's what they're built on. I get why Apple would want this. As a consumer, I hate more bills. I hate more bills. I don't want to sign up for something else that's going to charge me more. And something that Chuck and I talked about this week, if I fail to pay, let's say, I don't know, millions of people are thrown out of work as the result of a world-girding pandemic, and there's suddenly violence in the streets, and people can't go to their jobs and continue making their money. I know it seems crazy to think about, but let's say something like that happened. If I'm unable to pay my bills, do I suddenly lose access to everything? Do I lose access to my ability to look for more jobs? Do I lose access to my ability to make more money because I rented all of this stuff from Apple instead of buying any of it outright? Now, you can say this plan would not be for people that would be affected by that. And that's probably true. I mean, maybe that's the thing. Maybe this is, if you make enough to afford it, you can afford to rent it and you'll be happy. And if you don't make enough to rent it, maybe you're stuck with Android and, Chromebooks. I don't know. I find the idea interesting. I kind of don't want it to happen, mostly because then Tony Sacconaghi will be right, because he's been talking about this for like a year now. And he's also not a stupid man. He's honestly not a stupid man. I disagree with him a lot of times, but he's smart. He was beating the drum for Apple returning money to shareholders when Steve Jobs was alive. Like, I remember Steve Jobs yelling at Tony Sacconaghi saying, "You don't know what you're talking about." It's funny, if you were on that call or if you were listening to that call, you might remember that too, because man, Steve Jobs just made him look and sound stupid and small. But you know what? Apple gives a ton of money back to shareholders right now. I kind of, well, it's fine. It's Apple's money, or what's the shareholders' money to do with as Apple sees fit, I guess. Probably Tony Sacconaghi's not wrong. The thing that I wonder about is, will it be Apple that will do that, or will it be other people that will do that? I know we talked about the idea on this show of hardware as a service because of something that Virgin is doing over in the UK. It's $100 a month, I think, or £100. Maybe it's £70, $100. You get an Apple Watch, you get an iPhone, you get an iPad. I can't remember if there's any other hardware in that or not. And you get data and you get calls, all for, one flat, well, not one flat fee, but one monthly fee. Don't know what any of the terms on that are. Don't know what happens if you miss a bill. I have no idea how any of the workings of it are, but I do know that somebody has introduced the bundle that everybody thinks that Apple should introduce at some point. Does Apple want the headache of dealing with that? Well, they want the recurring revenue. And then maybe you have less, worry about, is Apple doing the right thing environmentally, because Apple is going to get these machines back. And Apple down for parts and put them into new machines, or maybe they will sell them off to, school systems or I don't know, other people who can't afford them. I don't know. It's an interesting idea. And the more I hear it, the more I think it's inevitable. I don't think it'll be the only way that you can get stuff. I think you'll still be able to buy a Mac. You'll still be able to buy an iPhone. I don't think we'll have to rent stuff forever. It's an interesting idea. It would also depend on the price point, I think. But and now we're just niggling over small things, and we can do that another time. Let's go to feedback, because I got a fascinating piece of feedback from Ken, no relation. I wanted to bounce a thought off you, he said, to see what you think. After listening to you and all the other tech programs talking about the M1 Macs, I started wondering if we would see something like a MacBook Air SE in a couple of years, similar to the iPhone SE and Apple Watch SE. A MacBook Air with an M1 processor for a lower price, say $699, after Apple introduces the M2 or the M3. It would fit the pattern, and now that they're producing their own system on chips, not that difficult. Do you know if anyone else has floated this idea? Asked Ken. No, Ken, I do not know that anybody else has floated that idea. And I'm honestly embarrassed that it stayed in my inbox for, I want to say that Ken wrote to me the day after Thanksgiving. And, I was in a tryptophan coma the day after Thanksgiving. So I read it and I was like, I don't get it. And then for some reason, it just bit at my brain again today. And I went back and found his email. And yes, it makes perfect sense. What's really interesting is if you start to do that, then you start to be able to attack the Chromebook again. Attack is such an ugly word. But the idea when Apple introduced the iPad was that the iPad would be an interesting way for Apple to get into schools. And it's still an interesting way for Apple to get into schools. But I have a friend who is an administrator in a school system in Northern California, who the second I told her about that, she was like, I don't want it. I don't want it. I don't want it for my kids. It's too much of a distraction. I don't mean her children. I mean the kids at the school that she is an assistant principal. Too much of a distraction, too much new learning. And I was really resentful of that idea because it felt very short-sighted. And at the same time, she knows more about education than I do. It's her job. I'm looking at it from the outside saying, why can't this be? She's looking at it from the inside saying, I need inexpensive laptops. I don't know that the Mac will ever be truly inexpensive, but the kind of prices that Ken's talking about in his email are fascinating to me, and they do set up the possibility of, even if they're not quite as inexpensive as a Chromebook or a series of Chromebooks, if they're just a tiny bit more expensive than the Chromebooks, but you can hold on them forever, and they have all the benefits that people are talking about with the M1 now. I think Ken G, no relation and no relation, has a fascinating idea there. And that's one that I'm now going to be, I'm going to keep my eye out for that one. It won't make laptops disposable, but it won't make entering the Mac ecosystem seem unobtainable, I think. I love that bit of feedback. I would love to hear your feedback as well. If you have reactions to anything that you've heard on this show, any ideas that you want to present, something that you want to see Apple get into or something like that, I'd love to hear from you. A few ways to do that. You can leave a comment on this video if you're watching this video. If, on the other hand, you're listening to the podcast, the best thing to do is email me. In fact, that would be great if you're watching the video as well. My email address is info@macosken.com. I read all my emails. I sometimes forget about them for a week and a half. But I'd love to hear from you. info@macosken.com. Of course, a more immediate way to offer feedback is to come to the live show. There are people talking over in the chat room in the live show right now. And as soon as I'm done with this part of this, I'm going to go over there and see what they're up to. This is a thing that we do every Monday through Friday, and barring holidays, well, most Mondays through Fridays, 3:30 Pacific, 6:30 Eastern, other times, other places. You know how those other places can be. We'd love it if you'd come and join us and, say hey to everybody hanging out there. Let's see. Got In a Few Minutes tomorrow with Chuck Joyner. Got macOS Ken tomorrow. Almost forgot that one. And, of course, we'll do this tomorrow afternoon. And I'll talk to you soon. Oh, people, I brought nothing to drink with me. It's tragic. Because now I have cotton mouth. Not the snake. Snakes. Why did it have to be snakes? What's up, everybody? MacBook Air SE in a plastic case. Honestly, that's an interesting idea. Go polycarbonate. Go polycarbonate or go home. That's what I... Don't actually say that. Okay, see, it was right at the top. No trouble is Nate. Okay. There's Hank. Hank, did you hear? California is getting the COVID-19 tracing app on Thursday. Hank and I had an exchange about that. I don't remember if that happened during the live show or if it happened in this, after thing that we do here. But I was talking about why did it take California so long? And it turns out it took longer than I realized, because while we in the settings have a thing where you can turn on notifications, Hank did a little bit deeper digging and read that you actually had to be part of a test program, a pilot program associated with USC. But Thursday, they're going to turn that on. They're going to turn on the contact tracing app for COVID-19 for iOS and for Android, I believe. And I fully expect all of our phones to melt at that point, because everybody. Anywho, talking to my mom the other day, she knows 4 people. 4 people. I was talking to my cousin's boyfriend the other day, and he tells me that they just got over COVID-19. So that's great. Numbers are going up, don't turn around. That's all I'm saying. That's not all I'm saying. I keep saying that's all I'm saying, but then I say more things. Going through, sorry for the silence, going through and seeing who's saying what. Jinkies, Frank. A Mac Mini and an LG Ultrafine. It's like getting ground effects for your Yugo, isn't it? I mean, could you do with less than an LG Ultrafine, I guess is what I'm asking. I'm not saying the Mac Mini is a Yugo. I'm saying, yeah. Donna said my name like 8 times or 7 times. I can't count. And Mom never taught me how to count. Roll call for Ken. Frank, Nate, no trouble. Brian, okay. You guys are still at the, man, I'm still at the beginning, right? Okay. David says he doesn't have a 4K television, so he wonders what a new TV would do for him. Honestly, I'm assuming that would be a thing that they would sell with, they would sell the processing power for games. That's my guess. And other stuff too. I mean, the 4K and maybe the sound. I don't know. One day, Ken will see the roll call at the bottom before going back to the top. Don't know what you're talking about. It might be that our setups are different. I'm not sure. YouTube has been troublesome. Stock keeping unit, says John, as far as skew. Thank you, sir. Donna is hoping that Apple is introducing a pony. Is it an electric pony? Is it a robot pony? Because otherwise, we can't all share the pony. Something about that sounds inappropriate. Apple branded face coverings available to the public. Brian's got an interesting idea. I was thinking tomorrow may be the release day for Apple Fitness Plus. If you couple it with new Apple TV hardware, it could make sense since it's time for Apple TV Plus to be released. It's an interesting idea. For some reason, I'm thinking that they're going to do the Fitness Plus push between Christmas and New Year because, New Year's resolutions, time of the year, all that stuff. Could be wrong. We'll find out in a few hours if it happens tomorrow. See, Webb is also thinking Apple Fitness Plus tomorrow. What about the hardware, though? Is that it's going to be the TV then or something else? Eugene says some people were speculating the AirTag's ability to be located precisely could be used in conjunction with Apple Fitness Plus. Imagine wrist and ankle bands with AirTags in them, like an old school Wii remote. That's a funny idea. I guess it's possible that it's that precise because it would use the U1, right? Is that what it's called? The problem is, though, I think that the fitness thing is supposed to be tied specifically to Apple Watch. So I guess if the AirTags enhance it, that wouldn't be bad. If you have to buy the AirTags to make it work, though, that would be bad, especially because they've already said it's built for Apple Watch. Ankle bands, like people on probation, says David. No, you're thinking of ankle bracelets. Or anklets. I'm thinking of something else. What's an iPod? Good question. Oh. Bill says his wife still has an iPod Nano. Wow. Every now and then, so I've gone to eBay. Like, I think every now and then, like, I wish I had gotten an iPod Nano because I never had an iPod Nano. And then I go to eBay and there are like a million of them. And then I realize I don't want an iPod. So it's like one of those things where, like, oh, that would have been neat 10 years ago. John says his sister needs AirTags. I don't think I need AirTags. I could see sort of getting one maybe or getting a set just to get a feel for what they do. But working from home and going nowhere, like even before the lockdown, I just, I don't think it's a thing for me. I know I see its value. I see its worth, but I don't even know if that's a thing that I would do. Hey, Amy, just came across your name. I didn't say your name earlier. Amy raises an interesting question. Could this be a case of overthinking a number change for Apple inventory control? Sure could. We could get nothing tomorrow. We could get nothing, and it would be fine because did I mention all the stuff that we've gotten for the past 2.5 months? And by we've gotten, I mean, it's not like Apple hasn't released anything lately. That's interesting, Rob. Rob says he's looking forward to the AirTags. He's using Tile now and finds them a bit unreliable. I don't know if you heard the story that Allison Sheridan told, golly, I don't know, several months ago when she was on In a Few Minutes. She and her husband, Steve, were traveling out of the country, and his backpack got stolen. And they weren't worried about it because it had Tile, except unbeknownst to them, the battery in the Tile had died months ago, it turns out. I don't know how they weren't notified about that. I don't know how Tile works, but I do know that he was walking around secure in the knowledge that he would be able to track down his stuff, except, the thing that was supposed to track it down was dead. Why is Nate laughing at the idea of a new Intel Mac? That's what I'm saying, Nate. It's just like not anything that anybody would be excited about. And wouldn't that be fascinating that Apple puts out a Mac as a press release? It's possible, I don't, because I think if it happens, sort of like what Amy said, I think if it happens, it's just going to be, it could be really boring. It could be like totally anticlimactic, except it won't really be anticlimactic because I'm not expecting anything climactic. Bill says he wants hardware as a service to be a robot butler. Amy, what do you mean YouTube winners daily Star Trek news? I like the idea of a macOS Ken hoodie, Frank. Send me a design. Nate says iCloud storage should be 15 gigabytes free. 100, 500, and 5 terabytes. Dude, I felt gluttonous with my 2 terabytes. Socks for your Apple Watch. That's funny. Man, you guys are talkative today. And now I'm catching up to the now, I think. I'm not gonna, well, whatever. Tile needs to be rebooted, says Rob. So I just have a reminder to test them every few weeks or so. Yeah. Nate says he's been checking around a lot of ideas this evening. Not all serious. Yeah, I'm with you. No, Frank, here's what I'm saying. Okay, first of all, I know it's not going to happen, but the Intel Mac is for business. That's what I'm saying. It's for people who are already planning on buying a bunch of Macs anyway. You're saying it would have to be at a stiff price cut. No, it wouldn't. Quite the contrary, because Apple doesn't want anybody buying them anymore. They'll make them available, but I don't think it would be at a stiff price cut because I think Apple is willing to keep making the Intel Macs for people who have to have them. I don't think they're looking to move them. Does that make sense? I thought there was some level. Oh, a full backup, you mean, Nate? Oh, yeah. Sorry, Nate saying a serious suggestion from a guy I know who fixed iPhones is that iCloud backup should be free because so many people lose their stuff. Yeah, I get it. I get what you're saying. It's hard to see it happening, though, because they're basing their money on services at this point. It seems more likely that they will present to people a good, solid reason why they want to go ahead and pay for this. And then it's another, $2 a month for Apple. And they like recurring revenue. That's the rumor, anyway. You guys are fun. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you. Let's do this. You want to do this again tomorrow? Let's do it again tomorrow. What do you say? And all week. I'm going to go make this into an audio thing now. Thanks, everybody. You're wonderful. I'll talk to you soon.